This is something that I actually have been wanting to try. Beef ribs, but I decided to do hot honey glazed beef ribs, and they were super delicious. Not the easiest recipe in the world, but more time consuming, but totally worth it. I started out with 2 full racks of beef ribs. Now, these are not what they call the primal cut ribs. These are the smaller ribs. So you want to pat them dry thoroughly. That helps the marinade stick a little bit better. Now, for the marinade, I'm using some yellow mustard, some horseradish, some soy sauce, and I'm also adding in, because I'm not smoking these in the grill or anything, I'm going to use some liquid smoke, and I would have added Worcestershire sauce if I had some. If you have some, by all means, add some to the mustard mixture. Now, you spread the mustard mixture onto the ribs. This just allows your spices to stick. You can skip this if you want to, but it does add a little bit extra flavor. Anytime you're adding acid to something that's a little bit fatty, it really helps to balance the flavors. Now, I am using some onion powder. You can be generous with the spices. I'm also going to use some garlic powder. I'm going to use some black pepper and some Chipotle powder and some smoked paprika. But again, you can use any spices you like. You can also use something like McCormick's seasoning blend or some Montreal steak blend. That will be fine. And because none of my spices have salt in them, I'm adding in some pink Himalayan salt. Now, these ribs I wrap them and then put them in the fridge and let them hang out in the fridge for you can go anywhere from 4 hours to 12 hours. I did add a little bit of sugar because that kind of helps the spices penetrate into the meat. Pat it on just so when you flip them and do the other side, your spices doesn't fall off. And the mustard helps too, to bind the spices to the ribs. Now, you can remove the membrane from the back of the ribs. I didn't, but it helps them stay together. So I left the membrane, but if you want to, you can remove it. It comes off very easily once they cook too, by the way. Now, I'm just wrapping them up very well in plastic wrap because you don't want everything in the fridge to smell or taste like barbecued ribs. Believe you me. So wrap them up extra good. Now, into the fridge they go. And I just let mine, this was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I pulled them out the next morning, which here they are. Now, I will be baking these at 250 degrees. You want to use a rack so that your ribs ain't just sitting on the pan. If they do, that's not a big deal if you don't have a rack. But if you have one, I will use it. Now, I'm adding some water to this. It creates a little bit of steam and also stops the pan drippings from burning. Because my ribs are not super fatty ribs, I did add some olive oil to the top of them just to make sure they stay nice and moist and they don't dry out, because they cook for a very long time in a slow oven. So they go into the oven for 1 hour at 250 degrees. After 1 hour, increase the oven temperature to 275 degrees and let the ribs bake until they hit about 170 to 175 degrees. And they'll look somewhat like this. They'll look a little charred, but not, like burnt or anything. So when they hit 175 degrees, you want to wrap them. The reason why you wrap any meat like this is to allow it to the collagen to break down in the meat and tenderize. And wrapping it also keeps it from drying out. You need to cook these ribs till they hit right around 205 degrees. So wrapping them will keep them nice and moist. Now, I did pour a little bit of the pan drippings on the ribs just to make sure they stay nice and moist. This is butcher's paper, by the way, not parchment paper. If all you have is parchment paper, by all means, you can use it. Now, I reserve those beef drippings because I'm going to add them to the hot honey barbecue sauce that I'm going to pour over the ribs. Now, back into the oven they go. Make sure you add a little bit more water to the roasting pan. Back into the oven they go at 275 degrees. And you're going to let them cook until they hit 205 degrees. That took every bit of 2 hours and 30 minutes because the last 30 minutes of that 3 hours is where we're adding the barbecue sauce. Speaking of the hot honey barbecue sauce, I use Sweet Baby Ray's, which is my favorite. You can use as much or as little as you like. I use some Sambal. This is a garlic Sambal. Add a nice little flavor, and this is where the hot part comes in, the hot honey barbecue sauce. I am using some raw honey. You only needed about a tablespoon because barbecue sauce is fairly sweet, so you only need about a tablespoon. You can cut it down or cut it out completely if you don't want yours to be too sweet. I wanted to cut through some of the sweetness, so I'm adding in about 2 teaspoons of raw apple cider vinegar and be generous with the black pepper. That's really gonna kick it over, as my dad likes to say. Now, mix this up, have it ready. As soon as those ribs at 205 degrees and the timer is, you only have 30 minutes left, then you want to take that delicious barbecue sauce and slather it on the ribs. Now, I'm just taking the temperature. Mine was right around 190 degrees, which is fine because I know when I add the sauce to it, they won't overbake. So I'm just unwrapping them. As you can see, they have undergone quite a transformation from the way they were looking. They have gotten a lot more cooked, and they look more juicy than when they were baking, sitting in the open oven. So this is how they look. They look good at this point. If you were happy, you don't want barbecue sauce on yours, then by all means, this is perfect for you. But I'm just going to slather mine in that homemade hot honey barbecue sauce. I like a good amount, so I'm being generous. But again, if some people like a very light glazing of barbecue sauce, so this is entirely up to you. This is the joys of cooking your own food at home. But in my case, I'm going to be somewhat generous with the barbecue sauce. Now, pour those extra pan juices, not directly on the ribs, but around the ribs. And I did mix some of the pan juices into the barbecue sauce. That kind of thinned it out just a little bit. But by all means, run it through a fat separator before you do, because ribs can be a little bit fatty. Now, back into the oven they go, and I let them cook for that remaining 30 minutes. Then when they come out of the oven, this is how they look. Oh boy, they were so good. I don't eat this kind of food very often. I'm not a meaty person, but oh boy, these ribs were delicious. I hope you give this recipe a try. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and the good Lord willing, I'll see you in the next video.